We have to, did you? Oh, there we go. So welcome, everybody. And our presenters are Monique Dumais and Melissa Aldrich. Monique started getting into bird watching with her parents as a child, and then got back into birding around 2018 after being inspired and encouraged by a friend. Monique currently serves on the Hampshire Bird Club Education Committee and the Hampshire Bird Club Board. In 2023, she co-presented a workshop on female bird songs, and when she can, she attends birding field trips. So in this workshop, she's going to share some of her observations and stories about getting friends into birding and some advice on how to share the birding hobby with others who are starting out. Melissa Aldrich is a longtime birder, and she is a high school science teacher. She is a member of our ed committee and is simply obsessed with birds.
All right, we'll get started. I'll share my screen. Everyone see? All right. Well, good evening, everyone. So, as Leslie mentioned, my name's Monique Dumais, and this is Getting Your Friends into Birding. And for the agenda, here we go. We're going to just go over a few points of how we got started into birding and how you can really start the conversation with people and helping them to understand what equipment and PPE and all this other things that they need. And then inviting and sharing that information and sharing stories about how we got our friends into birding. So, as Leslie mentioned, my parents were birders, and my mom's favorite bird was the eagle. And my parents would go out and they would go to lunch and they would go see eagles. And my first memory about birds, I was down in Florida with my parents, and I was about 4 years old when I was feeding pelicans. And there were white pelicans and brown pelicans. So it was pretty cool. It was a lot of fun. And then, as time went on, I didn't get into birding as much, and then I got back into it. One of my friends who was also a fellow birder, she's been all over the world looking at birds, and she shared her stories. And then that inspired me to get back into birding. Yep. So really, it's really starting the conversation. And the way I do it when I get people interested in birding is I start to talk about my hobby and show pictures. I try to give them something that they can relate to. Ask questions to spark interest. I today I was talking to someone that I'm new, I hardly know him a little bit, and I told him about my hobby, about birding, and he's like, "Oh yeah, there's a bunch of eagles that you can see just up the street," and we just started talking. So it really breaks the ice a lot, um, and they'll tell you where they've seen birds, and we ask the questions: What are the birds doing? What birds have you seen? Where can you see them? So in this example, he's like, "Hey, listen, if you go up and watch those birds, the eagles, they're up in the trees about a little less than a mile up the road. You can start seeing the babies come, and it's really cool to watch them." So that was really cool. And of course, what I do is I try to show them an interesting lineup. We talked about the eagles. You have some of the cast of characters here. Of course, in the winter you see the little dark-eyed juncos, but as migration starts, you might see a uh, indigo bunting, and then of course we see the other cast of characters that you can see here: the cardinal and the red winged blackbird. All of those birds, they start coming to life in the spring, as you know. But it is also depends on the time of year that you can start talking about birding. And then I start talking about equipment. So, optical instruments, it's really interesting. One of my friends, she was talking about when she first got into birding, the binoculars she had were kind of cheap. It was kind of hard for her to see, you know. And she goes, when I got better binoculars, I could actually start to see and enjoy, birding. And then, of course, dress for the weather, bring water, snacks, repellent, sunscreen, proper boots, everything. Because, the last thing you want to do is just get eaten alive by a bunch of bugs and things to that nature. So, really important that when you're getting your friends into birding, hey, here's some decent binoculars, get you started, but here's some equipment so you can be dressed for the weather. And then apps really help, especially with the younger generation, millennials and Gen Zs. They love the apps. They like interacting with the phone. There's a couple of links that I've given here in the bottom on Cornell and Merlin. So Merlin Bird ID, as many of you know, can help you identify the bird. What I tell my friends is and family members that are interested, be careful because, as we know, Merlin sometimes doesn't give you the right bird information, but it's getting better. eBird, of course, is great to document and get information. I can actually track where some of my friends have been, where they put it into eBird. And then Audubon has one. I haven't really gotten into that one as well, but there's options out there that you can explore with that. And then, take them to a hot spot or recommend for them to go to a hot spot. And they're all over the place in Western Mass. And then I'm talking a little bit about Connecticut as well. I'm starting to explore in there. But, hot spots you can go with on bird clubs. You can go by yourself. I have some friends that they go and they do it while they're camping or vacationing. So if you take them to a hot spot, then they can see all the birds, and get excited about the birds. And I've seen that even when we've taken people out birding and it's their first time and they see all these birds, they get really excited. So hotspots are really important, really good for them to understand where they can go look, as opposed to sometimes just even in their backyard. Um, and then birding in the area. Sometimes it starts with just your backyard. Um, on the left-hand side, this was out at a company I used to work for, and we would get eagles all the time. We also got vultures. And then on the right are the little birds that I like. Okay. Anybody know what these birds are? Anyone know these birds on the right?
What is the guess?
Yeah, guess.
Looks like a killdeer.
Correct. Killdeer. Yep, that's what they are. Now, I'll tell you the story about these killdeer. Every year, they came back to the same spot. And the last year I was working there, people were walking out in the field. So they were out in the field and they found the nest with the eggs. So they went and got the people from maintenance and they roped it off where the nest was and told the whole plant to don't bother the birds because they're having kids, they're having babies. And that all started from me and other friends starting to talk about the killdeer. We were sharing stories about the killdeer, everything, so it made people aware of the birds that they came back. And so they protected the birds, they roped off the eggs until the babies came. And then there were all sorts of pictures of the babies. They were so cute. They're like little tiny little poofy balls. And then they grew up into before you know it, they were, flying and hanging out with their parents. So it was really cool. And then again, on the left-hand side was an eagle that came by to visit. So killdeer came by every year. It was pretty cool to see them raise their young and fly around. Starting small with resources, some recommendations. One of my friends, when I got back into birding, the one I was talking about, the ones on the left-hand side, the Massachusetts and Connecticut birds that you see, those are trifolds. So they're really easy to get someone into birding without having to carry a heavy book. It gives you just a basic idea. It's not going to overwhelm people. And then there's pocket ones. I found these two that were really good, especially the pocket birds in North America with the bluebird on there. That was really good for me. I still use that because it's really quick and it's easy for you to refer to a book. So, you know, uh, makes a great Christmas gift. There are times I've given my friends they start getting into the birding, they have a nice resource and pocket guides there. These are a little bit more advanced. You know, you could get these books if there's interest. The one on the right I really like because it actually has real pictures of the birds. So that's Falcon Guides, Birding New England. Birding Essentials, of course, that one is really great to get people to get into birding and have those interests. What I wouldn't recommend is giving them a textbook because they will get overwhelmed big time. This one is The Complete Birds in North America. Yeah, not a good idea. The owl says that's not smart. Really, not good. Look how thick that is. You're going to give that to someone? It's a textbook. It's really overwhelming. So know your audience and know some of the things that can be overwhelming to them. A couple of other things I didn't mention in these slides is also bird clubs. That can be really overwhelming for people when they first start out. And some of my friends were like, I don't want to deal with a bird club right now. No, I just want to start, get used to everything, and then I'll go from there. But please, Monique, no. No bird clubs, please. Now, I'm going to share some stories. Does anybody know what my cousin, she goes to Aruba and sends me a picture of this bird. So can you identify what that bird is? It's in Aruba. It's in Aruba. And yes, I think
Can you describe it, Monique? Because it's small.
it's hard to see. So the bird is probably the size, it's smaller than a cardinal. It's a little bit, it's about almost the size of a sparrow. It has a yellow breast, and then it has two white stripes right going across above its eyes, and its crown and tail are black. So the backside of it's black with little spots. So if I sent you the slides, you would probably see real close. This is a bird that my cousin, so she sends it to me, and she goes, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Where are you?" She goes, "Aruba." I said, "Okay, well that helps." And if you look at it, the bird is hanging out in a hut. It's a bananaquit, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And they also come in complete black. And the birds, what's interesting is they adapt to a lot of the environments when people put huts or, houses and things like that. They will adapt to this, but they like sweets. They like bananas. They love it. So, my cousin started getting into birding because when she goes to these places, she sees all these birds. Another story I can share with you. My friend goes birding for the first time. She goes birding by ear, and she uses the Merlin app to record. So she goes up with her family, her parents, and they go camping to a regular site. And she is birding with them by ear. So we were working together, and she goes, "Monique," and this was about maybe over a year ago. She goes, "Monique, you gotta listen to this." I said, "Well, how did your birding go?" She goes, "Terrible." I said, "What's the matter?" She says, "Monique, listen to this." When she gave the recording, all I heard were her parents talking. That's all I heard. She was so frustrated. She was so frustrated. So basically, what she did was, I told her, I said, lessons learned. You have to be really careful who you bring birding with you. I know you're trying to do that. So, she tried to include her parents, but sometimes that doesn't always work out. And then, of course, I talked a little bit about this. Work colleagues. I had some work colleagues that are now using the Merlin app, and they have feeders in their backyards, and they watch the birds, and they've seen indigo buntings, they've seen all sorts of different types of sparrows, they've had downy woodpeckers and hairy woodpeckers. So those are the birds that they've seen and heard just by showing them a little bit of the apps. So now I'm going to hand this over to Melissa and go from there. Melissa, you want me to start your video? You're on mute.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Melissa. So I'm a science teacher at North High in Worcester, Mass, inner city school. And I've been watching birds all my life for 56 years, if anybody's counting. And so on this
We are.
first slide, I've lived in multiple different places. And my mom lived in Florida. And the sandhill crane, and Monique is this is a cell phone video. So we
Email, and I saw
traveled
that,
to see
and I
these.
text messaged you. I didn't call you back, so thank you for calling.
I sent you an email this morning.
Oh, did you?
So can you hear that? Yeah. So my stepfather puts out cornmeal, and they come every day. And here in Massachusetts, you know, when I've gone to is it Arcadia to see the sandhill cranes because they're so rare. Okay, we can stop that. And then I go down to Florida. My stepdad has them in the parking lot, and he's just putting corn on the ground. They come every day. And a funny story about that, I am very obsessed. I heard them, but they were flying. And you know, it's your typical Florida condo community. There's a golf course. So they would go from this wooded area to the golf course. So they had the sliding glass door. I had my coffee. I slammed right into that door. I was so excited to see these birds. Bruised my face. Anyway, so yeah, I used to see them in Florida, and that's where I've traveled frequently. I also go to Prince Edward Island, and then I lived in Arizona for about 5 years. So the bird in the middle, right under the word introduction, is a California condor. And I lived like on that map underneath, and we call it on the flats. And it was in the volcano field north of Flagstaff, Arizona. And I had this little rental, and I could see the painted desert like from my bathroom. It was fabulous. But I saw a California condor out in the fields, not fields, but out in the desert. I used to run in the desert with my dogs, and he was on the ground. He was tagged. He took off. Biggest bird I've ever seen. So that's my big life list bird. But I don't keep a list because I'm too disorganized. And then, of course, going up to Canada every year, I do a morning loop. And I tell everybody everything that I see, and I put it on Facebook, and I talk about it constantly, and I drag people with me. So I think I agree that you want to be somewhat methodical about it, but I'm so chaotic and disorganized. I feel like if you just get out there and do it, it will come 100%. Okay, on the next slide, my inspiration for birding is this scarlet tanager. And I was 5 years old, bike riding through my neighborhood, and I saw this wonderful bird. And I'll never forget this, in some type of tree. And the world was quite different back then. And I pedaled home, and I told my dad, I saw this bird. And instead of like telling me exactly what it was, he got me my first pair of little plastic binoculars and a bird book. And I had to look it up for myself. And that was it. I was out every single day trying to see something new. And I'm telling you, children are like sponges, and we know this, right? If you have children or nieces or nephews, I mean, they really love this type of thing, especially if you gamify it and make it into a scavenger hunt, which is what I do with my teenagers in high school. So that's a nice bird to be inspired by. They're not so, I really have to seek them out now deep in the forest to find one, but one of my favorites. Okay, next slide. Okay, so getting my friends into birding, really, I have a captive audience because I'm a high school teacher, and I teach biology and environmental science. So, and I'm in the inner city. And I have to say that I introduce birding to them, and I have a collection. I show them what Merlin is. I don't show them eBird because it's too complicated. But just to get them out walking around the grounds, we'll go once or twice a week, and we try to photograph what we see. And these house finches are always in the parking garage, and they make a nest. And of course, the the house sparrows. And then I have a slide deck of the birds I hear and see at North High in Worcester, Mass. So there's Baltimore Orioles, there's rose-breasted grosbeaks, and I don't see the same students every year, but I've had students who are in like inner city gangs send me pictures of a cardinal. Miss, what is this red bird on my steps? And they get really excited about it. So I do, even if it's just one bird that they see, you never know how that's going to affect them for the rest of their lives, you know. So this photo was taken by one of my students, and it's our local house finch nesting in the garage. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so another way that I found to get people interested is, and my friend did this to me. She got me a wren house. So it's the diamond shaped house, bird house. They're relatively inexpensive. Some people make them themselves. This is something I got at the bird store, Janice, in Sturbridge. And I gave it as a Christmas gift to my niece, to my nephew, to my sister, to all kinds of people. And they put them out in their yards, and lo and behold, they got all kinds of wrens. And once you get that right out your back door, people become really excited. Like Monique said, if you get to see any bird raise their young and have the young fledge out of the house and out of the area, people get really excited about that. So suet feeders, bird feeders, plants to attract pollinators. First time seeing a hummingbird come to a wisteria bush or a butterfly bush is also just very, very exciting for people. So I like giving those types of gifts. They're natural, they support your local business, small business, and it can end up inspiring people. Yeah, housewarming gifts, all kinds of stuff. Okay, next. Volunteer. So boys, instead of buying Girl Scout cookies, the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, they have a bird watching badge. So if you know people who are like troop leaders and you make it known that you're a bird watcher, and I always say novice because I don't want to say that I'm an expert, because I'm not. I've just been doing it a long time. But just to take a troop out into the woods when they're at camp, or lead a little walk around a pond and help them get that badge can make a big difference. We've had requests at the bird club, but if you know people who are in nursing homes, if you show up with a bird feeder and then put seed in it, of course you have to keep up with that and then help the residents identify. That really adds something to their lives at the nursing home or any of those communities. And then church groups too. I always volunteer to lead a bird walk. I haven't had any takers yet, but I will. So volunteering for groups like that helps get other people interested, and helps instill perhaps a lifelong commitment to birds or commitment to conservation to preserve habitat for birds that really is desperately needed. Okay. Right. And then since everybody's online, like I started back before all this, and so I am slow to come around to the online stuff. But it turns out Cornell University Lab of Ornithology has a citizen science project, many of them, not just about birds, but about all kinds of things. So I started in the early 2000s when I first started teaching with a Project Feeder Watch. And they sent a poster, and I'm not sure if they still do it, but they give you a poster of backyard birds, a couple of books, and plastic feeders. You have to get the seed. So I set them out outside a classroom, and I was on the third floor, and we would spend part of science class observing through binoculars and then counting the numbers of each species of birds. So it's good to collect data, analyze what kind of birds came, and then we would send that data back to Cornell University. And one day we were looking out the window and the girls started screaming because a Cooper's hawk was eating a mourning dove, and they saw him come in for the kill, and they were, can we save it? You know, they wanted us to run out and save the poor mourning dove. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. This is nature. This is how it works. And so some girls go, I can remember the class was kind of evenly divided. Some people backed away. I can't watch that, which is fine. I'm not going to make people watch it. But a few of them were like, wow, look at that. Really keying in on the whole death of the poor mourning dove. And all I did was set up a couple of logs, a little brushy pile, and I had the bird feeders. We had some suet feeders. Plus, we got to go outside to maintain them. So that Project Feeder Watch is outstanding. And then they also have citizen science projects for adults. And all you have to do is go to the website and you can get as involved as you like. And then the other group that I'm really interested in and I participate with is the Eastern Mass Hawk Watch and the Northeast Hawk Watch. There's several Hawk Watch groups, and they count migrating hawks and raptors and eagles and everything else that flies by certain locations all over the Northeast. So I first just went up and started hanging around, and I was so intimidated. I can remember, like, I would drive to the top of Mount Wachusett because that's closest to my house. And there were so many people up there with their big scopes and looking out in the distance, but they're so welcoming and so kind, and they will talk to you forever about what you're looking at. And so now I go up regularly and contribute, and I just have a lot of fun with them. It's a good effort. So every fall is on Mount Wachusett, and then in the spring now, they just started a Hawk Watch site at Bears Den, on Bears Den Road in Athol. But I think it's near a processing plant, and I haven't gone to that yet. So in the spring and the fall, the routes are a little bit different. And they also do it on Plum Island near Newburyport, but that's a lot of, that's too far for me. I only go out there like once or twice a year. So Mount Wachusett's nice. It's drivable. You can drive to the top, and it has facilities. So I like it up there. Everybody cooks and brings snacks. And the birds we see, I mean, I have seen some phenomenal things happening. Kettles of broadwings. One day we saw 6,000 in one day. And that you just can't, I can't even describe it. I mean, I had tears in my eyes, right? So I've been trying to get my students up there, which is challenging, but I will get them up there at some point. So if you ever have the chance to participate in anything like that, it really is part of something bigger, and it helps raise awareness about how we can do this, boots on the ground, how we can help protect birds and protect the areas that they need to thrive. And I think that might be it. I'm not sure. Oh, yes. The equipment Monique was mentioning. So I'm one of those drivers too. Like my poor partner, and even when I'm teaching, I just stop. There's a bird. I just stop teaching. If I see something out the window, I am running. And the kids are like, what? You know, well, that gets people engaged. But when you're driving, it's a little dangerous. So just be aware of that. I do pull over if I can, and I do always carry binoculars, because the days that I don't have them in the car, I will see something and I will get very upset. And that's, you know, you do need binoculars to focus in and get a good ID. Some people take pictures through their binoculars, and I haven't done that yet. I'm not a big photographer. That video of the sandhill crane, that was luck, really, because he was right in the driveway. But Monique, you're doing so well with that. I think that's a whole different aspect. But be aware that if you see something rare, people want photos for confirmation. But I just need the confirmation in my heart. You know, as much as I love science, I'm not a big contributor in that regard. And just as a beginner, just to go out and watch birds and know what you see is very, very satisfying. Yeah. That's it.
All right.
Excellent. Excellent. So, questions from anybody?
You don't have any questions in the chat?
Your spark bird?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Do you have one? What was your spark bird, Melissa?
Oh, that's scarlet tanager.
Okay. And do you usually see one every year?
No, they're tough. They're tough to find now, I think. I mean, I guess the last time I heard one passing through the yard, Merlin said it was there. I believed it. I heard it for 3 days in a row, but I haven't seen one. I used to see them at one school I taught at, but then they put in Galdang solar panels and they took the forest down.
That'll do it.
Yep.
And Monique, was it your pelicans or your
Yeah.
bald eagle? Pelican?
Yeah, pelicans pretty much, and then definitely, eagles and things of that nature. But really, what drove me into, I mean, the pelicans, I was a little kid, so the pelicans were bigger than I was, because I was only 4. So, but I fed them fish. I didn't feed them bread, so I was good.
Yeah, that whole bread thing is awful. You go
Yeah,
places
so,
and you see that.
back then they gave you little fish that you could feed the pelicans and everything. So, but
Right.
that was a lot of fun, and my parents just were very nonchalant about their birding. They didn't make a big to do out of it, but they would go and dedicate time to looking for eagles. So I have, from my parents have since passed, but I have eagle things all over the house because of my parents. So yeah.
Okay. Okay, so
Carol, you had a question? Carol, you had a question?
Well, I have several now that I've lived.
Okay, cool, great.
One is, well, this might be more of a personal question, so I won't ask that one. The other one in terms of accessing eagle feathers. Do you have eagle feathers?
Oh no, I mean I don't have any eagle feathers or anything like that. But basically what my parents did was when they would go looking for the birds, they knew where to go look for them, and they knew their hot spots. And my father somehow knew, like, especially they'd hang out at the Connecticut River. But what my dad would do is buy little statues for my mother of eagles and
okay.
things. So
Yeah.
she had all of those, and I still have their binoculars. So back in the day, binoculars that were pretty common were Tosco binoculars. So I have those to this day. So, as a little gift to remember them by. But yeah, they knew they would spend the whole day too. They'd go off just for a whole day looking for eagles, and they get all excited. But it was something that they did together. And to Melissa's point, they weren't big photographers. They were just enjoying the moment, enjoying the birds and each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see there. It's illegal to possess feathers of endangered species unless you're Native American, FYI. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I was aware of that. There's actually a repository
Uh-huh.
that they get sent to. And
Mm-hmm.
if you have a tribal card, you can fill out some forms and request access because
Mm-hmm.
they're considered sacred objects to
Mm.
the Indian community.
Interesting.
So yeah, so you can do that if you have a tribal card to
Yeah.
access the feathers, and it's legal for the eagles. I
Yeah.
don't know about any other species though.
Yeah. No eagle feathers.
No. Well, it's federally run. It's a
Mhm.
federal thing. And so, but people have feathers from all different places, right? So
Mm.
so my question was related to, because I'm a bit of fan of diversity and differing abilities and accessibilities.
have you outreached in your educational programs to that population? And if so, how can we outreach more than we are? And Jan, I know you've done some wonderful stuff with the blind and deaf community, some outings. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that, and how can we create opportunities for more access to birding? That's my question. Really simple one, right? So I'll mute myself now.
Who
Who
wants
wants-
to answer?
I can
Well,
start.
Janice, oh, go ahead.
Melissa.
Oh,
I mean, I can start. One of the things that has been brought to my attention is there's more and more areas where they're making it accessible for people who cannot go on certain bird trips, because as you know, sometimes it is difficult for people to walk. All right, and it's difficult for them to have access. About a couple of years ago, I had a very bad back problem, and that created a disability for me just like that. So there were certain places I couldn't go. So it was really interesting for me to see what I'm seeing with some of the newer type of upgrades in some of the birding hotspots. So like Silvio Conti. And then there's a new bird place down in Feeding Hills that Broadbrook Park, I believe it's called, or near there. It's off of 187. It's very new in Feeding Hills. And they have that all accessible for people who have disabilities, or I like to call them abilities, empowering abilities. So that's one of the things that we can make it easier for people. Also, I think utilizing bird song for people who have impaired vision that might not be able to see the birds, is if we teach them more birding by ear, which we have done that in the past. I know Janice and Leslie have been awesome in doing that, to bring that out with the song during our outings, so that people can understand. They might not be able to see very well or see at all. So in those, we've taught about how to bird by ear. And then the third thing is Janice's bird sit-ins, that, we have sat instead of going out. We've let the birds come to us. I think we did that last year, Janice, early at Arcadia. And we've done some of those, and we have another sit-in in April. So at Silvio Conti. So that also helps people who may not can go on that full trip due to any type of challenges they might have. So those are how we started. I don't think we brought it out because we don't want to like single people out or make them feel uncomfortable. But we are trying to incorporate that more into our education than we have in the past. I don't know if anyone wants to add to what I've said.
I would add one location. That's a new location.
Yeah.
That I went on last year is at the Appalachian Mountain Club main camp in Cummington. They have an all-persons accessible trail there.
Yeah, and you're starting to see that more, Carol. There are more. I have a friend that lives out in the Cape, and they just did one. I think it's not far from Eastham, that they did it all over again, so it was more accessible. I'd have to find the link. And that was focused with people with disabilities or having problems accessing some of these birding sites. She actually worked with those people, so she shared that with me. So you start to see some of these other birding spots and the newer designs of birding spots that I gave you an example where you can now have better access, especially if it's difficult to walk or see. Melissa?
Yeah, I was just going to mention the big sit. My partner is legally blind and he is the Merlin expert. So we are a joint committee when we're out birding. He does Merlin, and then if I need verification, we work together in tandem. And that is why I mentioned Mount Wachusett. You can drive to the top. It is wheelchair accessible, and some of my expert hawk watchers up there are differently abled and wheelchair bound, and they do a phenomenal job. So, and I was also thinking of Megadeepa's efforts, and is she in Hampshire Bird Club? Are they in Hampshire, or
I don't know
they
if
run a
she's,
lot of programs. Sorry.
yeah, I don't know if she's in the bird club, but I know she operates a whole
Feminist,
during the Christmas bird count. She has a
Yeah.
group of about 18 or 20 people, and they have a territory. They've worked with Josh, who was the leader, on what part of the territory to use and how to use it. And off they go. And she sets all, decides that and sets all that up. And it's,
Yeah.
but I want to get back. One of the things that I learned doing with blind birders, all right, and it wasn't just letting them hear, but getting them to get a sense of what kind of bird was I talking about. So yeah, you ask permission first, all right? Can I touch you, right? So they have their legs. So like we had a heron. How high up? How tall is this heron? You say 3 feet. I wasn't sure whether they knew 3 feet. This way or this way. They had no idea. So I said, I'm going to touch you on your leg to show you how tall it is up your leg. Another is, you have to think about how can I help them learn about this bird, and if they're never have seen colors. I don't even go to colors, but the other was the beak. So what was the beak like? So I took their hand. I said, I'm going to draw it on your hand, right? And so they have some other senses than just hearing the bird or hearing you talk about the bird. Another important thing to do if you're with blind birders or people who can't see, whatever, is if you're walking, is you need to say, now we're going to walk on gravel. Now we're hitting a boardwalk. It might feel uneven. And if they have I forget what those called, a stick, one of those sticks, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we all know that says that they're blind. Is there an edge to the boardwalk? All right, there's an edge now. And then at Conte, there are times where there's no edge, right? So tell them, because they're going like this and like, jing, there's like nothing there. So there are ways that make it much all simpler for them to not fall or not expect something because you stop talking about X item. And the people that I've gone with were like, oh, that they were all appreciative of those things than just talking about the bird, giving them. Even like, if you know what have a feather, give them a feather, right? If you have, I know it's illegal, you're not supposed to pick up any feathers, but I pick up feathers all the time. And I have feathers, right? And we find feathers on the trails. We're like, oh, somebody took out that bird, that dove, but let them feel those and the sizes. So it's about thinking, for me, it was about thinking of our other senses that still match for them, than just thinking about the senses we have that don't match.
Yeah, I think bottom line is you have to know who your audience is and find a way to reach out and get that feedback from them, what's working, what's not. What I'm also seeing is equipment. So they're starting to come out with digital binoculars that can zoom in a little bit better. And, there are night vision and things like that might can help. So the equipment, I think, is starting to develop, knowing that there are people that might need that extra assistance, especially if they have impaired vision.
Yeah,
Mm.
and people who have some issues with their hands and feet, binoculars don't necessarily work real well,
Yeah.
right? Because they have to hold two things, right? It's hard to hold one and focus it, and so little binoculars, and I don't know if the Bird Club has any, can be the most useful for folks that there's too many things to hang on to. Anyway,
Yes, that would have
Spark
been, yeah.
Spark Bird, Carol.
I'm sorry,
What was your Spark Bird?
my spark bird, for me personally,
Yeah.
I can't, I've been birding for a long time, but never in a club till I joined the Hampshire Bird Club. But I'm still a beginner. I consider myself a beginner. So, but the bird that I've always loved is the chickadee.
Okay.
Always the chickadee. And of course, when Quabbin was beginning its Eagle program, I was able to go out and actually see some eagles that were being reintroduced back then.
Oh wow.
I was like, a teenager, but still. And so
That's
now
exciting.
every
You
time
know-
I go and see an eagle, I just am so thrilled.
Jim Lafley has a great program on that.
Oh, he
yeah.
reintroducing? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get him to do it sometime. Joseph, what's your Spark Bird? Or was? Maybe it still is.
Wood duck,
Wood duck.
because I was just starting birding like 3.5, 4 years ago, probably 3 years ago. And was at a place in the Berkshires called Parsons Marsh. And I was with someone and I took some pictures of a duck that was way across the marsh, okay? And I had a 200mm lens. And I took pictures of a couple of ducks that were over there that we couldn't make out. And we put in a checklist and got home and I put my photos up and I enlarged the photos and I saw that horseshoe on the neck and I said, whoa, what is that? And then I looked at it and they were, it's not that they were good pictures, but it was because it was a digital camera, because it was digital and because you could blow it up. I could see enough to say, it's a wood, I go through a book, it's a wood duck, it's a wood duck. So I said, we have to add a couple wood ducks to our checklist. And then when you get to see what a wood duck looks like, a male or female, the female wood ducks to me are like, they're glorious with those eyes. That was my spark bird. Unless you want to count song sparrow. When I was a little kid, I didn't bird watch when I was a little kid, but when I was a little kid, the first bird that I would hear in the spring was a song sparrow, which I didn't know was a song sparrow. And I would say it's springtime. I would hear that bird and I'd say it's springtime. So, and I only recently remembered that when I started to hear song sparrows and say, oh, that's that bird that I used to, anyway. But I would say a wood duck.
Okay. Sue? Is Sue still listening? Maybe, maybe not. Mary?
She's muted.
Susan's muted.
Mary, what was yours?
Mine was a little blue heron.
Little
Molting
blue
first
heron.
year.
Little blue.
The calico, they call them calico birds when they're blotchy blue and white.
Yeah.
First winter. So I was in Florida taking care of my sister, and early every morning I go for a walk along the canal. And I would see great egrets and great blue herons and little blue herons and green herons and limpkins and all kinds of wading birds. But the little blue was my favorite.
You had all those others.
They're buddies.
Yeah.
That's right. They're all buddies. They're all buddies.
They all move
about-
slowly.
What about you, Janice?
You know, I don't know. I grew up, my dad was a duck hunter. We ate a zillion ducks. He hunted pheasant, he hunted doves, he hunted deer. And so, I saw all of those. I grew up where there were yellow-billed magpies everywhere. They were like the LBJs, nobody wanted them. They got hit really bad by avian flu. They're now coming back. And, but I think it really was when I saw evening grosbeaks in the years when there were like 20 at your feeder, then you had no more seeds. I mean, at that time, I used like one of those trays you put under plants, if you're watering plants, and it would fill that with sunflower seed. And like, 10 minutes, 20 evening, mostly male, they seem like, I was like, and with their little racing stripes, it was like, oh my God, look at those things. So I would say that's the one I hate that I don't see them. I wanted to go up to Royalston. There's a place up in Royalston that they come to. Well, I think there's some places nearby, but where I can see a lot of them. Where I grew up, Melissa, you'll like this. 10 miles away from where I grew up, my sister was there the other day, like 175 sandhill cranes in the field. I sent you the video. Not when I grew up, but that's how the agriculture has changed and what they feed on. And I mean, 15,000 snow geese in the field, 10,000 greater white-fronted, they're just, it was on the flyway, Pacific Flyway. So totally different birding. Okay, Sue, we don't think Sue's going to answer us.
No.
Okay, I'm going to take my time and ask you a question. What do you think about this if the Bird Club did this? And we were talking about maybe doing this at our big city.
You want a question, an answer?
I want your spark bird.
What my spot? Oh, probably a bluebird is my, either that or a cardinal. They're colorful. They're where I grew up. It was an apple orchard, and so there was lots of bluebirds there.
That's great. I'd ask Leslie, but I know she's trying to do two things, so I won't bug her to come in. One of the things that we talked about in the education committee is doing a bird calling contest.
Oh, man.
No, like we announce it, people think about it, they pick their bird, and we do a bird calling contest.
I think that would be very fun.
That's what I think.
I think
I
you
like that idea.
Cheap. We get special judges and have prizes. Do you have a bird you think about doing?
Oh, what if we did it at the June picnic?
That's
I like
possible.
that idea.
To do it at the June picnic. We'll be at Arcadia.
We could try that.
It's June 3rd, by the way. I had to move the date because the 10th wasn't available,
Okay.
but that'll come out in the newsletter. Or just do it at a random other time. We're not doing other, like. as
Yeah,
a
but
picnic.
people want, if they're going to stand up and be goofy, they want to know that they're pretty good. If
They have to practice.
Yeah.
Was
I've
that
done
a
it with
pun,
kids.
Janice? You said it would be cheap. Cheap.
Yeah.
Cheap. Okay. Thank you.
I've done it with kids, and the kids, they're like intense, but they want to practice. And record. I mean, I never got them to record themselves. We recorded them.
I think that would be totally fun.
It would be fun.
Got a bird in mind? Anybody got a bird in mind?
Well, I can do a reasonable mourning dove.
Okay, let's sit here.
Oh, no. I'm going to save it for the content.
No, but you'll have to get better than you are probably
okay.
today.
Mourning dove. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
And then we'll play Merlin and see if
Squeak.
it recognizes you.
I can't squeak like the morning doves do.
Oh, I love the
good.
second part. I love that you got the wing in. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, Joseph, what are you thinking of?
Are you kidding? You think I can think now?
Oh, come on. That was a good morning dove.
It wasn't, I
Practicing
wasn't
for
impressed until the, you know, that was it. And, you know, we understood.
So maybe that's all we do.
You
is-
all knew what I meant.
Yeah, we knew what you meant.
Sue, do you have a bird song or call?
Do I have one?
Yeah, that you would do for the
Okay,
bird
yeah.
calling.
No, I don't.
Chickadee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee.
Chickadee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee.
Yeah, you have to get a little
There you
lower. I have
go.
to get
You're all
mine.
set. You've got your
See?
bird.
But I can't make a chickadee flap. Carol, you did good.
Here,
You got one. We don't hear it.
Got a woodpecker.
Oh, we can't hear it though.
I don't know why. I don't know how to
Bring
turn
it to the picnic.
Yeah, well, yeah.
See, I mean, we got us all thinking already. Mary, what about you?
I don't have one yet. I'll have to work on it.
Yeah.
Monique?
Same here. I have to think about it. I have a few in mind.
Well, tell us what you're thinking of.
A great horned owl.
Oh, wow, yeah. Mm.
Okay.
I had one last week hanging out in my house for a whole hour.
So you could practice with it.
Yeah.
In your house, did you say?
No, at my house.
I must be my hearing tonight. I'm not
Yeah,
hearing
no,
you.
or it's probably my mic. At my house. Because I live about, I live right at the edge of woods, and I don't live far from Ashley Reservoir. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, so these owls come around quite a bit, and he was hooting for it might have been two of them for over an hour, from 10:30 at night to 11:30 at night.
Wow. What a
Cool.
gift.
Cool.
Yeah, it was so cool. And I captured them. It's kind of difficult. It was very faint, but I did capture them on Merlin. I recorded it, so it's pretty cool.
Nice.
So you'll be at the thing with your little playing it on the side next to the microphone and mouthing it.
Maybe.
You can lip sync.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we could do bird calls or lip sync calls.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Just for everybody's information, I was trying to do a yellow-bellied sapsucker.
Ah,
Oh, that's a
okay.
good one.
Regular
Like,
and then
yeah.
goes Windows to
Drumming.
auto.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Um,
it doesn't have to be the song or the call.
Yeah.
Some way that we could identify that bird.
like
Or
a,
you could meow like a
walking
kitty.
like a woodcock.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so spread the word. This is going to happen.
Okay, we'll mention it. Monique, remember, we have to tell them at the board meeting when we talk about the
We'll
picnic.
bring it up at the next board meeting, Janice.
That's right, it's
Gonna be
coming up.
vetoed.
Oh, no, it won't. That would never happen for something like this. We don't veto much, do we? We put it
No.
under consideration periodically.
That should
Yeah,
be
or-
into.
Or we defer, right?
Defer, right, we defer. till we
Yeah,
get
let
more
the
information.
committee handle it.
Problem is when you're on too many committees.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, it's after 8. Thank you very much, Monique and Melissa. It
Our
was very
pleasure.
helpful. Got me to start thinking about what else to do. What other
Yeah.
things to do, my next things. And I'll get those things to you, Melissa, about the asylum seekers.
Thank you. All
Thank you very
right.
much.
I love that. Thank you, Carol. Thanks,
Okay.
Monique.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Yeah.
thank you very
Joseph.
much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.